Welcome back, everyone. Islam is a religion of hate. How's that intro for all of you Dawa keyboard warriors out there? But this hatred is so prevalent that it's become normalized, though most sane people don't even have a framework for conceptualizing it. A vivid image might help to both conceptualize this hate and keep it from becoming less visceral. So, when trying to understand the vicious, rabid, animalistic hatred of Islam, I suggest thinking of a savage wild pig with rabies. I'm not sure if this pig has rabies or not. I also don't know if a pig can even hate, but you get the point. A rabid animal just wants to attack and kill. Why? Because it's a vicious rabid animal. That's what it does. That's the brainwashing effect of Islamic hatred. And while Islam oppresses many people, for a long time, it's been focused intensely on exterminating one particular group, which is called, in a word, genocide. Perhaps you know who I'm talking about already, but again, this ideology of genocidal hatred has become somewhat normalized. It's just, Islam. So let's start with a saying of Muhammad that you've probably heard many times, so many times it's just not shocking anymore. One of Muhammad's moron companions reported him as saying, "The last hour would not come unless the Muslims will fight against the Jews and the Muslims would kill them, until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or a tree, and the stone or a tree will then talk, and it'll say, 'Muslim or servant of Allah, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him.' But then there is a special tree, a tree of the Jews, and that tree will not talk to the Muslims and give away the hiding place of the Jews." Paraphrase mine. Islam inspires perpetual hatred against the Jews until death. And if you have trouble conceptualizing that, the only thing I can offer you is my rabid pig analogy. There's no deeper logic. Now, there are different types of criticisms to level at Islam. We can look carefully at Islam's theology, at its history, and its texts. And there are many videos on my channel dedicated to doing that. But on many subjects, we can also just point and say, that's Islam. And that's what we're doing here. Let's start with the most egregious example of rabid, animalistic, Islam-inspired hatred against the Jews. In the description box is a link to a recent updated account detailing the sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas terrorists. These are things that animals don't even do. These people are worse than pigs. I'll just summarize. The report submitted to decision makers at the UN leaves no room for denial or disregard. The terrorist organization Hamas chose to harm Israel strategically in two clear ways: kidnapping citizens and committing sadistic sexual crimes. Notice that the report says it leaves no room for denial or disregard. That's true except for masses of Jew-hating Muslims and secular Western idiots, of course, where such reports are frequently denied or justified. Again, the report's in the description box. It's the worst thing I've ever read, and I won't go into further detail. If you're interested, the Apostate Prophet did a full live stream on this article. You can see that link in the description box, or read the report for yourself. Let's move on to the next example of Islam-inspired hatred. Hamas and Hezbollah have for a long time had thousands of rockets aimed at and launched into Israel. Here's a list of various missile strikes. It just keeps going and going and going and going. Hezbollah specifically has at least 150,000 missiles pointed in that direction. And here's a very recent video of dozens of missiles being fired from Hezbollah into Israel. Again, just normal life for a Jew in the Middle East. Islamic groups are expected to routinely fire rockets into Israel. That's just what they do, and Israel is expected to respond only defensively. So from terror attacks to a few 100,000 rockets, some Islamic groups are foaming at the mouth to fulfill that stupid hadith about killing Jews and talking trees. This has become normal. Firing rockets into Israel is expected. Terrorist attacks are expected. The response to them, that's the real problem, according to rules for radicals. Let's turn now to some rhetoric that shows the rabid Jew hatred Islam has infused into the Arab world. Here's a recent example from a Fatah official.
وأنا أريد أن أقول للناس لماذا حدثت الهولوكوست؟ أنا لا أحب هتلر. ليس حبيبي هتلر. ولكن هتلر عندما قام بالهولوكوست كان بأسباب واضحة أن اليهود والصهيونية العالمية قد خيروا بين أماكن مختلفة من العالم، في الأرجنتين وفي أوغندا وفي شمال سيناء وفي جنوب العراق، ولكنهم اختاروا فلسطين لأسباب أخرى قد نذكرها. وكانوا يخططوا أن يسيطروا على ألمانيا، وبدأوا يسقطوا ألمانيا اقتصاديا، وبدأوا في إسقاط ألمانيا أخلاقيا. فكانت ردة فعل هتلر بأنه جعل اليهود ينزلوا إلى الشارع ويلعقوا الرصيف بألسنتهم وهم يعرفون هذا الكلام. وليلة الكريستال معروفة في التاريخ اليهودي، وليلة الأمواس الطويلة معروفة، عندما كان يؤمر اليهودي أن يضع على صدره علامة، هذه العلامة اللي هي النجمة السداسية، ويقال لهم اليودين الوسخين. ونقولها بشكل واضح: لقد حرف اليهود الكثير من الآيات اللي نزلت في التوراة لكي تعجبهم. وأنا بديش أقول أمثلة لأن الأمثلة قد يعتبرها البعض أنني معادي للسامية.
He says he's not a fan of Hitler. I have my doubts. Notice that he doesn't want to cite examples of verses from the Torah that the Jews corrupted, lest he be called an anti-Semite. That's where he draws the line. But saying that Hitler had obvious reasons for the Holocaust, and then citing as those reasons conspiracy theories, on par with all the other stupid Jewish conspiracy theories floating around the Muslim world, well, that's fine. Apparently, he doesn't think that's cause for being called an anti-Semite. There are so many examples of these types of videos. Here, let's try this one. Listen to this pig from the Palestinian Scholars Association. Palestinian Scholars Association. An obvious contradiction in terms.
بالأمس أيضا صدرت فتوى رائعة عن هيئات علمائية في خارج فلسطين تبيح دم الإسرائيلي أينما وجد، في داخل فلسطين في الضفة الغربية في 48 أو في خارج فلسطين، حتى في الدول المطبعة التي يزورها الآن عدد كبير جدا من ما يسمون بين قوسين بالسياح الإسرائيليين، وأكثرهم جنود أو مجندين في جيش الاحتلال، وحين يعود سيقوم بواجبه أو يقوم بدوره في قتلنا وفي قتل أبنائنا، فدمهم حلال أينما كانوا.
Recall that for many years, the Palestinian Authority is on the record for paying people to kill Jews. All this makes me very puzzled about why a two-state solution hasn't worked. But you don't have to go all the way to these so-called Palestinians to get this sort of rhetoric. Hear it from this angry little man. I featured him in the last video and was so entertained by him, I just had to bring him back again for an encore.
We neglected the principle of support, which is al-jihadu fi sabilillah. The only way that can stop is to face the enemy the way they face us. They face us with aggression. We should retaliate with aggression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا. Fight in a path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who fight against you, will fight, they'll defend the deen, they'll defend their land, not with their tongues, but with their blood. And each one of us should be a soldier today. So jihad, they will try everything, but it's only jihad that can bring victory. Not contracts, not agreements, not allyism, not all these things. Only thing, wallahi, that can bring izzah to this ummah is al-jihadu alladhi taraddada kalamuhu fi kitabillah wa fi ahadith Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The only thing that can bring izzah, honor, and glory to this nation is jihad. Ya Yahud al-dhul, al-mujrim, al-zalim, al-mufsid kuffu, kullukum hatman sayuqtal.
Now that's the cry of a truly oppressed soul. The angrier and more violent you are, the worse your oppression, obviously. Further examples of rabid Jew hatred come in the form of vigilante attacks. Reports like these are unfortunately very easy to find with some frequency. From a couple of days ago, a Jewish man attacked outside of a Paris synagogue, another stabbed in Zurich. The Zurich attack was reportedly by a young ISIS supporter, only 15 years old. French authorities called the Paris incident an unspeakable anti-Semitic attack. The last update I saw, the Paris stabber had finally been caught, but there were no further details given. Now, the vast majority of times this happens in Western media. The alleged criminal is a member of the oppressed coalition and thus has his or her identity and motivations concealed to protect the narrative. Another example of how this gets normalized. So when a Muslim man kills a Jewish dentist in Southern California, the mayor of the city acknowledges fears that law enforcement could obscure anti-Semitic motivations for the murder. He said, "People have told me they're concerned that the city or the FBI or whoever's in charge may try to sweep this under the rug and treat this as though it were a simple crime." So time will tell if these unsolved mysteries are another example of anti-Semitic attacks perpetrated by a Muslim against a Jew, like the recent stabbing in Zurich, part of so many attacks that have recently surged in the West in solidarity with Muslim terrorists. So to review, there's the stupid kill all Jews hadith. That's one of many Islamic sources that sets the trajectory. This trajectory plays out at the national level with Islamic groups and their allies, including many secular Western idiots. In the meantime, we've witnessed sadistic, brutal violence against communities that make our stomachs churn. Add to that attacks on individuals walking out of the synagogue. So while this plays out on multiple levels, nations, communities, individuals, the hatred is only satisfied with death, the elimination of human lives. It's saying that at best, the lives of the Jewish people don't matter, but of course Muslim leaders say far worse than that. For someone who believes in a God, such a determination with human life is above my pay grade. That's a determination for the one who gives life. But in Islam, it's precisely their God and their prophet, though I repeat myself, who has determined the Muslim community will eliminate the Jews. For much more on Islam's instruction manuals of genocidal hatred, see my video on the sources of Islamic anti-Semitism. Islamic hatred is common, but don't let it become normalized. Think of a rabid pig or whatever other analogy keeps the image in your mind visceral, then point this stuff out to other people and say, that's Islam. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.